Joining me now is a congressman who represents Georgia's 11th Congressional District, and he's been digging into the events of January 6, 2021, and so many of the unanswered questions about that day, the federal government's behavior and Democrats' behavior in Congress as well. Congressman Barry Loudermilk is here. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
Well, it's good to be with you. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Let's. Well, the reason we invited you out is the topic I'd like to start with, which is, Nancy Pelosi assembled a committee, a January 6th committee, and without getting any buy-in from the opposing party, the Republicans. So as far as I can tell, an illegitimate committee. But they did their actions, and they gathered a bunch of documents, and then before they handed over the keys to the Republicans, they deleted a ton of stuff. What could you tell us?
Well, I can't verify that they destroyed documents, as some have said. I do know they deleted some, but we definitely know documents are missing. And the way we came about this is they were supposed to preserve, according to House rules, according to all precedent, they have to preserve all the information, all the transcribed interviews, all the investigative material that they acquired during their investigation. That is part of the official House records. Then that is supposed to be turned over to the clerk. As we started our committee, then the clerk was to turn all of that information over to my committee, which the clerk handed over everything they had. Early on into the investigation last year, when we received it, it was not what I expected. I expected a database that they were using with everything digitized where we could get right into it and get to work. What I received were boxes and boxes of printed documents, over 1 million printed pages, not categorized, not cataloged, just blank, basic information. And we were supposed to receive about 4 terabytes of digital data, which out of the 5 or so hard drives they gave us, we only had about 2 terabytes.
But you knew that 4 terabytes existed. They only gave you 2.
Well, I didn't know it at the time. The way I found out that there were 4 terabytes is when I had an attorney call me who had represented Cassidy Hutchinson originally in her first testimonies, which significantly changed later on.
Right.
And he wanted to review the videotapes. He informed me that they videotaped every deposition, every interview was videotaped. And he wanted to review the videotapes of his depositions with Cassidy Hutchinson. Well, we couldn't find not only that one, we could find no videos whatsoever. They were missing. So I wrote Benny Thompson of Mississippi, who was the chairman of the committee, the select committee, and asked him, where are these videos? And by the way, we also found a letter that he had written to the White House and one to Homeland Security, sending documents to them, House documents. He was sending them House documents for the White House and Homeland Security to keep, which is unprecedented, and these are House documents. So I asked him about those in the letter. In that letter, he came back and said, we just chose not to keep the videos, and we gave you 4 terabytes of data. That's how I found out there were 4 terabytes, but we had less than 3 terabytes of data. And so that prompted us to dig a little deeper, let's say.
Sorry, what did he mean when he said we chose not to keep the videos? The core work of the committee was these video depositions. Why? Does that mean they deleted the video of the depositions?
We don't know. We don't have them. And so the standard operating procedure when you do a transcribed interview, and like interviews we've done with the people that we brought in our investigation, you call the House clerk's office. They send someone in to actually do the recording of it, the court reporter type thing. But you also call the House recording studio, and they bring in the cameras, and they videotape it. Well, we contacted the House recording studio, and they informed us that they were not allowed to actually keep the recordings, that the select committee only borrowed their equipment and they did all the work themselves, which really raises suspicion is, did they intend on getting rid of these all along? But Liz Cheney, in her book right now, talks about how important it was to videotape all of these interviews because of the transparency, and the American people had the right to know what really happened. Well, somewhere along the way, somebody determined we didn't want to keep those. And so that is what really prompted us to dig deeper. So we hired a forensics team to come in and do a low-level scraping of the 5 hard drives they gave us. And that's when we started finding documents that we did not have, that were either deleted in some cases or hidden in hidden folders, that according to the company, is a third-party company we hired to do the forensics, is that they were purposefully hidden, and they were designed really, we would not have gotten them if they had not gone in and did this procedure. Well, over 100 of those documents, some we recovered, we were able to see, and were able to verify that these were associated to some of the documents they sent to the White House. Let me put it that way. Ironically, some of those were deleted just days before the Republicans took over, and they were supposed to hand us over.
Importantly,
but the majority of those documents are password protected and encrypted, so we can't access them. So I have asked Benny Thompson, just give me the password. If there's nothing to this, then first of all, why did you guys delete some of the documents? Why did you hide other documents? And then why are they password protected? And so in the meantime, I've also written letters to the White House and to the Department of Homeland Security demanding that they return the House documents. So far, the Homeland Security has ignored both of the letters that I sent, and the deadline for them to respond was yesterday. The White House responded to one of the letters I sent to them, and they provided us with their 4 documents after they redacted them. And they're so heavily redacted that there are multiple pages of just blacked out lines. So they're redacting House information to give it back to the House. So I sent them another letter, basically said, either give me all the documents or I'm going to subpoena for them. And we did hear back from the White House yesterday, just before the deadline. It says, we need a little bit more time, and we'll get them to you. What takes more time for you to put them in an envelope and deliver them to the White House or to the Capitol? That's all it takes. What do you need time to re-redact what you've already redacted? That's not acceptable. We need all of the documents.
So you described that Democrats did share these documents with places like the White House, and who else did they share them with, to your knowledge?
They also shared documents with the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, Fonnie Willis.
That's what I wanted to know.
In fact, as it's coming out now, they had, it appears, multiple meetings to where it looks like, and Jim Jordan, my good friend, chairs the Judiciary Committee, is digging deeper into this as well, is that her boyfriend that she hired to help with the investigation actually came and sat down with committee staff and spent hours going through documents. And so my interest is, what documents did they have access to? Are there documents that I'm missing? Why does she get to see documents that we potentially did not? But the interesting thing to me is all of the documents that I know about, for instance, the documents at the White House and at Homeland Security, are people who were with Donald Trump on January the 6th. They were either Secret Service agents or they were White House employees that had direct access to him. And just from what the White House has sent us, the heavily redacted documents, just reading the unredacted portions, you can derive from those that these witnesses were probably not giving the Select Committee the story that they wanted to hear. And so my suspicion is that any document that doesn't support their narrative, that's what's missing. And look, what happened on January 6th, there was tremendous violence after the Capitol. I was there. We all know what happened. But the American people need to know the truth about this, not what was in this cherry-picked and predetermined narrative of the January 6th report.
Congressman Loudermilk, earlier in the conversation, you said you don't have many of the videos. Do you have any of the video depositions or none of them?
We don't have any of the full videos. The only videos that they have that they preserved were the ones that they actually used portions of them in their televised hearings.
Right.
You know, they actually hired a Hollywood producer to
Yes.
come in and help them put together these shows, TV shows. So they actually used snippets from some of the depositions in those hearings. That is the only part that they preserve that we have.
Do you have written transcripts of depositions?
We do. Well, of most of them. Now, there are some, as we were talking about, from the White House, that was sent to the White House and DHS. We don't.
Okay.
But we do have the written ones, and that's what Benny Thompson is saying. Why do you need the videos? You have the written transcripts. Well, here's the reason. There's body language. There's voice inflection.
Sure.
There's the looks on their faces. There's things that make a difference. For instance, there's a huge difference between, hypothetically, someone saying, I shot the clerk versus I shot the clerk. There's a significant difference there that you don't get in a written transcript.
Yeah, that wasn't captured on privately on somebody's cell phone in some private home. It was captured in the United States Congress for the American people, and as a result, your committee should have it. Before I let you go, I saw this week with some interest a thread from one of your colleagues, Thomas Massie, who was emphasizing this pipe bomb saga and everything that you Republicans in Congress have learned about it.
Yes.
It seems to me a massive mystery. But why are we just finding out now that the man who first spotted the bomb outside of the DNC was actually a plainclothes Capitol Police officer? And what else are you learning that the American people deserve to know about?
Well, there's several things about this, and Thomas Massie has done a great job really digging into this. We've been working with him as we find information, sharing it with him. But it was just recently revealed that was actually as you said, plainclothes Capitol Police officer who found the pipe bomb. The thing that I find most interesting is the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was in the DCCC. Secret Service was outside in an SUV, literally feet from this pipe bomb. We have videos, security videos from the night before when the pipe bomb was left, and you can see where it was placed. It was placed to be found. It was obvious. How did the Secret Service not find this if they're supposed to be coming and sweeping the area before the Vice President-elect who is going to be there? How does Secret Service miss this when it was literally feet away from the SUV that they were sitting in, where they're supposed to be protecting the vice president? There's just so many things that are just strange that we need to get more answers on. Even the gallows is something we've been looking into. These gallows were actually erected early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. How did those stay up all day without some law enforcement coming and taking it down? They stayed up until in the evening. You would think that a police officer coming by and seeing a set of gallows on Capitol property, that would raise a little suspicion. And so that's something else we're looking into is, even besides who actually erected the gallows, is how did they stay up all day? What's going on here? There's just too many strange incidences beyond even just the suppression of intelligence. We know for a fact that many of the intelligence agencies had intelligence about a pending attack on the Capitol. President Trump was briefed about it 2 days before January 6th. He ordered the National Guard to be ready and even used the term, we need 10,000 troops ready to deploy. That we have that evidence. It's been there for a long time. There's something else the Select Committee overlooked. But then the U.S. Capitol Police Intelligence Division, they get that same intelligence and they don't pass it along to their chief. But yet it appears that leaders of the Democrats in the House knew of it, but not the chief of police. There's just too many strange circumstances. And I can tell you there has been a lot of politicization by Democrats of the Capitol Police and Capitol Hill security for many, many years, and that has to change.
Lastly, the Massie tweets that I saw that really caught my attention were his conversations with an FBI official called Stephen D'Antuono. And apparently he's the same man who worked in Michigan at the very time that the FBI was plotting out an effort to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer and to make it appear that Trump supporters were out of control. And then he moves to D.C. He's there for January 6th. And then when he testifies to your committee, seems to forget every possible detail about the pipe bombs. And then at one point says the reason they don't have any of the cell phone data from the guy who planted it is because conveniently that data was corrupted. They're not able to figure out who it was. You have to be deeply suspicious of our federal government based on all of that.
Of course. I mean, first of all, our founders intended for us to have a healthy distrust of government, right? But I can imagine they never thought that it would get to this level that look, the majority of people, like 85% of the people, distrust their federal government. And it's because of things like this. When you look at the number of hours and agents that they have spent on prosecuting people, yes, there's people who went into the Capitol on January 6th that should be prosecuted. But the number of people that they're spending the number of hours on to go after them for what should be a misdemeanor trespass, but yet they're pulling people off the investigation of the pipe bomber or the person that erected the gallows makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
And also the threats against their own officers of retaliation that come and they speak to us. These are things that have to be corrected. We have to expose the corruption that does exist in our government, unfortunately. But I don't think it's beyond repair. But the only way you get there is through transparency. And everything that we're doing is to get to the truth because the American people deserve to know the truth about what happened on January 6th.
I totally agree. Congressman Loudermilk, please come back soon. We'd love to get updates from you on what you're digging into. Thank you for your time today, sir.
We'll be glad to. Thank you.